Hey, Paul Mauro here, Smart Financial. If you want to learn how to retire early, get out with 10 years of retirement before you're even 65, stick with me and I'm going to go through the details of how you set up your own retire early and often plan, otherwise known as REO, R-E-O. Retiring early and often, which is the plan for some people that don't want to work for 40 years for the same corporation and retire with a gold watch when they're 65 years old. And that's perfectly fine, by the way. If that's your goal, God bless you, you do it. It wasn't my goal. I will tell you, I'm not an expert on that because I didn't do that. I am an expert on doing REO because I did it. And I'm going to show you how to do it. It's actually quite simple. If your goal is to get out early and enjoy playtime while you're young and healthy, this may be for you. I know that there's two distinct schools of thought about retirement. One is the 40 years, gold watch, slow and steady, build up money, and retire from the same company. The other end of the spectrum is what we call the FIRE movement. There's a lot of people, financial independence, retire early. They just want to stop working. They hate their jobs. They want to really retire from a job and get out and be independent. In the center of this is what's called REO. Retire early and often simply means that you work with a system that gets you, in my case, 3 different pensions so that you get 10 years off during your work life and you don't have some of the stresses of searching for medical insurance for your family and paying for some expensive bills. I do think a FIRE movement can work, especially if you live frugally. I've traveled around the country a lot in my RVs while I was doing my FIRE movement. This is the Airstream I bought when I was 35 years old, probably the most expensive motorhome you could buy. I bought it brand new, put my family in it, traveled around the country, ran that thing 250,000 miles, and we enjoyed every minute of it. But I was able to do that because I also had a re-entry plan, just like an astronaut, a re-enter the work plan, so I was more able to liberally spend money. So retire early and often means that you go to work with different companies and even sometimes different careers. I had 3 separate types of careers, and you go into these companies knowing in advance that they have a 10-year vested pension program. Now, I think I mentioned in one of my prior videos that there's about 35% of the Fortune 1000 companies still have pension plans, and you can also get pension plans from unions, municipalities, etc. They all have different rules and regulations, so doing research in advance is very important. So for me, what I did is I went to work for a major corporation, got vested in 10 years, took a couple of years off midlife. Now, what's great about this is under the current rules of COBRA, C-O-B-R-A, under COBRA, right? You don't have to go scratching around for the first 18 months and looking for medical coverage. You're actually guaranteed the right to stay on your employer plan for 18 months with exactly the same benefits, pay a cost to them rather than go searching in the marketplace. And the great thing about this especially is if you have health issues and you're in a family way, having babies. So it's really important to have great medical insurance. Now, in my particular case, I had all of those things going on. So from about 25 to 35, I worked in my first corporation, got a vested pension plan, then got out, took a vacation, right, for a couple of years, traveled around the country in RVs, and then re-entered the workforce. I did another REO plan between age about 37 and 57. I actually stretched it a little longer the second time, and I got vested in another pension plan and took another bunch of time off. I took another RV around the country when my son was born, and then we basically re-entered the workforce the third time at age 57, and guess what? I just retired again the third time, and now I'm 70 years old, and guess what? At my age, I have 3 pensions coming in. This is hot. I've got fully vested Social Security. I'm already on Medicare, so I eliminated some of the problems that you have if you're a FIRE movement person. It also allowed me to spend more liberally, and I will say that in my case, I did not do a frugal, FIRE-oriented budget whatsoever. I put both of my children through private schools and got them out without debts and private colleges, and I'm very proud of that. And that's a big part of what I've written about in some of my books on smart parenting and smart grandparenting. if that's a goal of yours, you can mash it together with an early retirement and you can make both things work out. So let's talk about some of the things that you need to do. You can take notes on this, or if you stay to the end of this video, you can download our list of how to set up your Rio retirement program. And let me just read them to you. So number one, I do think that if you're going to consider a Rio plan, you have to look at corporations that have flex time, number one. Most especially, do some research, especially some of the major corporations, they have a hiatus program, a sabbatical program. You might actually be working for 5 years and they tell you to take a break and then they hold your job and bring you back. This is an awesome, I had some of my friends and clients do this. This is an awesome way to get out early in your 30s with your kids when they're young, take a big break, go to Europe for a year, do the things that you want to do, and then re-enter the workforce, maybe even at the same job in the same career. So research up front is super important. Number two, I think you should not be afraid of job change. In my own family, I've said before, we've had a lot of people graduate from college, ended up doing completely different things. So don't be afraid of job change. Have the confidence that if you go and you take a big break and you get rested and recharged and energized, you might come back with a better idea, a better business, a better second time around. Get a planned job change into your head so that you know when you come back to the workforce after a couple of years off, you have a re-entry plan, we call it, like an astronaut. You have to have a plan of what you want to do, and it might be something completely different than what you did the first time around. Now, second thing is, saving and investing is important. If you're going to do a Rio plan, that doesn't mean you don't save and invest. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I did a lot of savings when I was young because every dollar you put away in your 20s is worth about $100 you put away in your 60s. So you need to jam some money into the retirement plans that you started if they're 401k plans, in addition to the pension fund, so that when you get to be later in life, those compounding dollars can work for you. So you do need to save and you do need to invest early, okay? The fourth thing is that it's a very old-fashioned tradition to have something called a Christmas club or a vacation fund. I know when I was growing up, my mother would go to the bank and she would put money into their savings account, and she had a special account for Christmas and a special account for vacations, and this is quite common. I do think it makes great economic planning sense that if you're going to do a Rio program and you're going to retire and take a couple of years off or a couple of months off, that you need to have a stash of cash. Sometimes they call it an emergency fund. Sometimes people call it a slush fund, right? Some people call it anything else. But the number one thing is you should really enjoy this time off by looking at your cash stash and looking at your savings and say, okay, I'm going to be off for the next 18 months. I'm going to take my family around the country in an RV, or I'm going to go to Europe or whatever, and I'm going to spend in that 18 months, I don't know, $100,000. You need to have that money set aside ahead of time. And that gives you the joy of being able to be stress-free, to enjoy the time with your family. I know with Linda and I, before we would leave on every one of our Rio breaks, we would add up what the cost of all the things that we had to have paid for or prepaid, because in some cases, we kept our homes, kept our rental properties, we kept everything going. We just left. We checked out and we would travel around the country, as I said, in one of our RVs. We would go camping and hiking. We would go everywhere from Newfoundland to the northern Canada, drove to Alaska, did all that sort of thing. And I didn't want to be thinking about bills every day or bills every month. It will ruin it for you, right? If you really want to have financial independence, you need to save early, save often, and have buckets of money. One long-term bucket, that's the retirement bucket. And one short-term bucket, that's your Rio bucket. This is the money we're going to live on for the next few years. Now, I do think medical is very important. I follow a lot of blogs and people send me questions and ask me how to handle this. It's very difficult to handle the health insurance situation in America today, especially once you have a family. Now, I will tell you, this is one of the greatest things about doing a Rio program. If you work with great corporations, you can stay on their medical plans for 18 months, you can re-enter the workforce for a while, and then you can take another 18-month break. Every time you take an 18-month break, you're on something called COBRA, COBRA. That means you get the same corporate benefit plans, you pay their premium, especially if you have a pre-existing health condition or if you're in a baby-making way, you need to have great medical insurance. And a lot of people who try to fire, that is, get out really early with financial independence, they end up finding that medical costs is one of the biggest problem issues for them in America today. Now, I'm married to a Canadian, and for those of you that hear this, that if you're in Canada, it's a bit of a different situation. But here, where I'm talking to you from the greater Boston area, I will tell you, covering your medical cost as you retire early and enter and re-enter the workforce is super important. Now, the fifth thing is that when you re-enter, make sure that you re-enter another company that has a pension fund. Now, pension funds are free dollars. I'm sitting here talking to you today, and I'm collecting a couple of pension funds from companies that I didn't pay a dime into, and now I'm starting to collect my third pension fund along with 2 Social Security checks. And I will tell you, when you're getting 7 checks in retirement, that is the definition of multiple streams of income. So when I do my next YouTube about this, we'll talk about how we stacked up different types of investments and our real estate to produce multiple streams of income. So now at this stage in life that we know we're going to have guaranteed income for life, even though I've taken off over 10 years to play with my family young, and it did not impact our retirement planning. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel. By all means, share this video with any friend of yours who's thinking about retiring early and building up an early retirement strategy that we call RIO. And I'm going to get into this in more details in the next video. Just follow along, and I'll see you on the other side. This is Mauro. That's just part of the art of being smart.